All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Horimiya, episode 13, the finale.
Finale, yeah.
And they getting hitched.
Are they getting married?
Of a sort. You know, because there was a kind of proposal, sort of, that happened, you know? Like,
super cute.
They are going to be together forever. That is the plan.
And that is always indeed the plan.
Yep.
But let's see how much this show goes into maybe the showing of that, the build up to that. Are we going to do any kind of time skip stuff?
Who knows?
Because this is a series finale. We're not getting any more Horimiya in terms of this anime adaptation necessarily. And, you know, getting the full kind of picture, having now come to this point, it definitely feels like this was is an anime that definitely needed like an extra core.
Yeah.
And the last episode very much made that like
showed that.
Yeah.
But given the fact that this show does have a very clip pacing and all that stuff, there is actually a decent chance that we could get an actual wedding in this episode.
Yeah.
Even though the proposal was just the previous one.
Yeah. And then what focus will be given to kind of the main side characters like Toru and Yuki, for instance.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see how they handle that. But y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. All right,
that's the end of the series.
Is over.
Yep. Okay. No wedding, which makes sense. I mean, you know that.
I'm really glad they didn't
that would have felt
that.
a bit rushed.
Yeah.
You know, if they'd done that. But okay, we got the graduation.
We got the graduation, and we basically did a lot of little mini endings that are true endings, I would say now, for the majority of the characters. And they did a really smart thing, even, you know, obviously this is an adaptation here, but by choosing to focus on the aspects of Miyamura's depth throughout this high school journey, because he had the biggest transformation of anyone in the series. Hori had a transformation as well, but hers was more along the lines of being shown, like that other side of herself being shown to someone finally in high school.
Yeah, and her being okay with that rather than actually an outlook changing.
Exactly.
Like maybe she got tempered a little bit by being with Miyamura, but you know,
but primarily
not as fundamental.
Yeah, Miyamura went through a extreme change comparatively.
His outlook on life is different.
Yeah, his outlook on life, his outlook on people, his outlook on himself, the ways in which he literally presents himself to people. That's a very big aspect of the core theme of this story, is that people present different sides of themselves to different people, because very few people are comfortable with being truly genuine.
Right.
And thus, the relationship of Hori and Miya is not just about them falling in love with each other, but about them accepting the true, honest, genuine sides of each other, despite the fact that each person is not perfect.
Right. They've got all kinds of issues and things like that.
Yeah, they've got all kinds of stuff that makes them a full package, complete person. And it's a fun thing, because I wouldn't say that this series felt like a strong adaptation. It feels it feels like I should read the manga now. Like
the first half of this series, I would say,
was stronger.
The adaptation decisions worked a lot better.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Because then it makes
characters.
Right, there were less characters, and it makes it feel fun and fresh and all of that stuff. And you know, like, yes, the cast gets so big that they probably couldn't have reasonably just been like, okay, we're just going to like keep out these characters that get introduced
like 5
later.
Characters or
right,
so.
You know, to try and keep it shrunk down, but
it might have been the right call.
But there was a cost that was paid by not doing that, whether or not that was the right call. You know, right? And so, you know, towards the end, it's like, okay, we kind of feel like we're not getting as deep focus on any of the characters because there's so many, and that you know, that makes sense. Yeah. But I'm glad that we got that deep focus on Miyamura here.
Yeah, Miyamura having this hypothetical scenario play out in his head, where thinking about this wonderful moment he's sharing with Hori, where he's like, wow, just being here with you, this feeling. Wait a minute, this might not have happened.
Yeah.
There are there's a lot of coincidences that led me to this place. That feeling, that serendipitous, like, feeling of arriving, even though you been at this place for a long time because, you know, you realize that, oh, if that was changed, or if that was changed, or if that was changed.
You look back 3 years and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, there's this very long string of events that led me to this specific point, and if any part of the line was severed, this probably wouldn't have happened.
Yep.
That is such a cool feeling to have, because I feel like you have in that hindsight is 2020 vision kind of thing, a real feeling that your little choices, they matter, but also how connected you are to other people.
Okay,
Like the ways in which there are things that happened outside of your control,
right,
that put you in positions to make choices with your environment in play.
Even if Miyamura was in a bad place when, say, he met Toru or ran into Sota or, you know, anything like that, right?
Yep.
He was in a good enough place that he was able to basically, accept the serendipitous offering that he didn't realize he was getting, right? Of, oh, hey, you suddenly made a friend because you were able to admit to him that, yes, it's your earring, right?
Yeah.
Or, oh, hey, you end up meeting, you know, your partner, meeting your partner. You met your partner because, you know, there was someone who, you know, a kid who was, you know, having an issue, and you were like, okay, I'll help you out, right? Yeah. Even though, you know, it's, oh, he doesn't, you know, you're not worried about like your appearance and things like that, right? And then as a result, all this stuff ended up happening, you know? So cool. That journey, that struggle that you were on before the show even started meant something, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, there's something really like beautiful about it, even though like we as human beings will oftentimes try to put meaning or purpose into things that from an objective
sense, who knows
sense,
if they have it or not.
It doesn't really matter whether or not it has purpose or meaning. It's just the aspect of, once you look back on those kinds of things in that context, you then go, oh, shoot, it did have a purpose in that it did not, or it made it possible for this other thing to happen where I then made this choice. Like an example of the fact that in Hori's family situation, no one's looking after Sota while she's at school. That's just a thing. Sota's there all alone, so then when he ends up on the street having, you know, a little bit of an issue and stuff like that, he doesn't go, oh, like, I need to just go home or something to help. He's like, oh, this kind of sucks, and I don't really have anyone there to, oh, and then he's open for this really kind-hearted stranger to come up and be like, yeah, I'll help you out, kid. I feel like there's something really beautiful about it, even though, like, from the standpoint of choices and things like that, it is ultimately, you know, coincidence and stuff.
Right.
But the fact that things can work out so well for someone who saw their life in such a negative way, it must feel like fate.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the choice of having it, like, showing an alternate present was one that I wasn't even too sure about. I love how it cut back to, like, you know, just Mia with Hori's head in his lap, right? You know, just asleep, and that wonderful tender moment. But like the amount of episode that was spent on that was a large chunk of the episode,
few
right?
Minutes, 3 minutes or so. Yeah.
Like if you want to talk about adaptation decisions, right? That was not a cheap decision, right? To keep that in here, but you know it was done because it was really important, right?
Yeah, it leads really well into the final scene with Miyamura thinking about
exactly
what could he give in exchange for all these ways in which she's changed his life, not because she's so perfect, but because she's such a human being that he gets the opportunity to know all the aspects about her strength, but also her fragility, the aspects of her beautiful nature, but also her selfish sides, you know, all aspects of her are things that he only gets to have access to know because she decided to be genuine with him. Right. And that there's so much cool stuff to get with that. And he wouldn't have been someone that was capable of being genuine despite his maybe desire to separate himself out from the crowd and express himself in this really strong way with, you know, earrings, tattoos. All that ultimately really didn't mean much.
Yeah, if he had still been holding on to that bitterness from, you know, his previous school experiences, right? He probably wouldn't have. The happy coincidence that happened would have gone nowhere. right?
Sure.
It might have been like in that alternate future or alternate present where in the past, when Toru handed him his earring, he was just like, "Oh, what? That's not mine,"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Having a lot of funny parts in this episode also, I think, is a really good way at showing that the main point of this story is that a lot of these characters have come to understand each other and themselves a lot better. And thus, a lot of the heavier aspects of the story's drama aren't really relevant anymore because they've decided to leave that stuff behind and focus on what they can gain by just being together and not worrying about the context of what does together look like. Will we be friends forever? Well, we're going to definitely try to still be friends after this, but who's to say? We're not going to worry about that. I loved the ways in which Remy was the one to instigate this little thing of, but if we do get all this stuff, then we can have this little excursion together. We don't need to see that excursion.
Nope.
Like, we like the high schoolers are going to hope, at the very least, that it's all going to work out.
Right, that they'll continue to hang out and things will go well. And
it probably will. But then as to, like, Sakura, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that she's like, well, I guess I'm moving on.
Right, and that's
I'm going to take the initiative on that.
I'm glad that she had a resolving scene in this episode because
I agree, yeah.
because while it's something that I don't think the show needed to have resolving scenes for everybody.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the characters were for the most part wrapped up.
Sure.
In the first place, but two, time constraints and stuff, right? Focus on your main cast first, absolutely. Yeah. But her story is probably the one that was the most, or the least satisfying for me from like how it ended up going because it felt like probably adaptation issues and things like that among other things. But so having her come to this realization where it's like, okay, yeah, I've made a decision on this, right? It's not just like reactionary and stuff,
and I'm not just completely out of agency at this regard because
even
of things happening outside my control.
Right, even though it's still based on, a lie that is still in effect and all these other things.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. That happened. Those people made those decisions.
Right,
she can't
exactly.
control those decisions that they're making.
Right. So she just does what she does.
I think she's better off for it. I
think so too.
I honestly think that that's kind of one of the things that is really important about being a third-person omniscient perspective on the wall of characters that are going to make mistakes, basically.
Sure.
Is that, other characters are going to make decisions based on those mistakes. And those are just natural consequences of like, yeah, sorry, no, I'm going to have to let this go.
It's an example of a coincidence that went one certain way.
Yeah.
Right. And you could say that maybe that's fate, then or whatever, right? But it's the kind of the flip side to it that I think is a really fun reminder to have.
Yeah.
In this show that has all of these coincidences that Miyamura can look back on and see how they went well. Right. We, the audience, can see some of the coincidences that didn't go well, right? Or didn't go well for certain people or went a particular way. Yeah. And no one will necessarily know that coincidence went that way.
Yeah.
Just us.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's probably one of my favorite things about the hypothetical flashback of sorts is that one of the silliest ones that I don't even think is something that they're really trying to hone in as some serious way it could have gone different, but I still think it's really funny, is the idea that Yanagi went past Hori and her friend at the time, and the other girl freaked out because Yanagi is freaking hot.
Yeah.
And Hori was like, wait, really? And because she took it seriously. It was like, is it your third year? Wait, what?
Yeah, where is he?
And it's the idea that like, if she had seen him, she might have been like, hey, you. And Yanagi and her may have gotten together.
Yep.
Who's to say?
It's totally possible.
It's just the idea that those kinds of silly coincidences happen constantly throughout life. There is no from my perspective, there's no fate aspect to it in that things have to go a certain way. But that when you look at things from a 2020 perspective, you isolate the coincidences that didn't go to lead you toward this specific direction.
Right.
But you hone in on the ones that did, and you realize, oh my God, the fact that this is the string that led things this way means that almost everything that happens in life can be traced back with a long string of a bunch of cause effect or choices,
Right.
Nice little string there. Red
yeah,
string of fate
it's-
kind of stuff.
Life is chaos, both wonderful and terrible, and as a result of that, things will happen that we never could have expected or predicted.
Sure.
Right? Mia had no clue that his life was going to change so much in high school. Right? He had no real evidence to support it. Right? But hey, you know what? It did.
Yeah.
And ain't that something?
Yeah, ain't that something? The acknowledgement of your past self being something that you experienced, and it was rough.
Yeah.
And maybe over the course of this series, having such a accelerated pacing bit, we could have had a little bit more of a build up towards this bit where he kind of acknowledges his past self there, or the hypothetical present self that could have been. It's a little bit iffy as to
Right.
who that version of him was.
But
I loved the way in which it transformed once it came out into the light and he looked at it a second time.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm not positive on whether that was supposed to be like a headspace mental kind of like mental focus kind of a thing, or if it was basically trying to say that no, throughout Mia's high school experience, he has been seeing his past self like literally, like around, and he just never looked at them directly.
Yeah, there's ways I think that both of them work, because the hypothetical self is the thing that he could have dreaded as the nightmare of what high school could have been.
Sure, right.
So
thematically, they kind of mean the same thing.
they kind of do. Is the idea that he saw potentially a future back in the past that was his high school being just hell, and it was horrible.
Yep.
That didn't happen, therefore he chose to try and push that aside of that alternative way it could have been, and then in this moment of kind of lazy just happiness, he ends up thinking about that of, oh right, yeah, I thought high school was going to be hell, turned out not to be, kind of because of this adorable girl with her head in my lap. Whoa, oh my god, but the only reason why I bumped into her was because of this, which because of this, which because of this, and
change one little thing, and my life could have been completely different. And that's one of those things that I love it whenever stories get into, but I feel like it's also very healthy to just remind ourselves of as people, because then that can give us a lot more empathy and understanding for other people, or maybe they just ended up getting the different. The different, switch flipped, right? They got the different causal, schism or whatever, right? And suddenly that coincidence, they didn't get that, right?
Yeah, I really feel like it's a thing that if looked under the wrong context becomes a crippling curse, but if you look at it under another context, in that this still could go, extremely right.
Yeah, at any point there could be a happy coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. There's something extremely liberating in that. And thus, the relationship that these two have being something that on the cliche surface didn't make sense. These two didn't make sense as a relationship pair to any of the people in high school when this was happening.
That's true.
Means that really anything is possible. And I really like it. I also just really love the way in which they kind of subverted the whole idea of him gushing about Hori and talking about how amazing she is, but then bringing in all of her flaws as well. And then instead of this being a thing of, oh, I would give you my life, like I would give you everything, like this is some great act of his, it's no, actually, all because I know you, I can show you my love in just the simplest way of getting you a cake with a bunch of frosting, a bunch of whipped cream.
Yep.
That's it.
Because when it comes right down to it, she doesn't need this guy.
Nope.
Nope. Come on, Mia.
Yeah.
That's it. There you go.
I'm happy with you.
Yep.
I'm happy with you, genuine you.
And maybe some cake and whipped cream,
Cake and whipped cream will help everything. Yep, that's absolutely true. Yep. Dollop that shit on there.
Yep.
But I mean, this was a sweet way to end the show. I think this ending did a lot for the lower dips that things happen in the few previous episodes.
Because you never want to end a show on a low note, and I feel like the adaptation in the last few episodes, it
was rough.
It was a bit rough.
Yeah. But hey, when they focus on the Hori and Mia stuff, I mean,
that's what we're here for.
I mean, that's what we're here for. But that means the source material got that part right.
Yes, exactly.
At the very least, it got that part down pat. So I would love to see or experience a more fleshed out version of that at some point. That sounds pretty good. But hey, y'all, that means it's time for a new series.
That's right.
We've got a poll that's wrapping up right now, and it looks like the show that's going to be coming up after this is a show that's a short show.
It is,
but it's
indeed.
a more recent show.
A more recent show, and one that has struggled a bit in the polls, you know, but it's now finally won.
Yeah, Vivi Fluorite Eyes Song. Yeah. And this poll will be quite unique in that there's going to be a second place winner as well.
Indeed.
So stay tuned.
You want to know
for
what that is, you know.
Yeah, check out our Patreon and stuff like that. But yeah, y'all, if you want to see the first episode's reaction discussion to Vivi Fluorite's Eyes Song right now, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.